This is a story called The Little Monsters, Chapter 17. The Greedy Kids. For once, excuse me, for once all the kids are at school and behaving themselves. However, someone keeps eating their packed lunches and no one knows who it is. At first, everyone thought it was Stumpy because of his love of food, but they soon realised it wasn't him. No one knew who it was, but they weren't happy that their lunch was being eaten. However, the Little Monsters gang did have younger brothers and sisters, and although no one knew it, it was them that was eating everyone's packed lunches. Every time anyone came out of the classroom, the little kids would hide until they were gone. One day the school fire alarm went off for fire practice, and the little kids who were too young for school were sat eating everyone's lunches, but thankfully no one saw them. Excuse me. Every day the little kids followed the bigger kids to school without them knowing and ate their lunches. Of course, the little kids thought this was really cool and funny. Excuse me. Every day the little kids ate the big kids' lunches. However, one day Mrs. Applejack came out of the classroom and almost caught them. They managed to hide, but it was a close call, much to their amusement. About 10 minutes later, the big kids came out of the classroom, and when they looked in their lunch boxes, they saw that their lunch had been eaten. By this time, the little kids had gone home. Kicker said, "When I find out who's eaten my lunch, I'm going to kick them so hard they won't be able to move." Stumpy said, "My lunch has gone too. I'm hungry and my stomach's rumbling." "You're always hungry, Stumpy," said Creeper. When Creeper looked in her lunchbox, her lunch had been eaten too. "I don't believe it. My lunch had been eaten too," she said. The rest of the gang looked in their lunchboxes and their lunch had been eaten too. At that moment, Mrs. Applejack came out and said, "What's up with you guys?" "Please, miss, someone's eaten our lunch, and our lunches aren't, miss, and we're hungry," said Bumpy. "Who on earth would do a thing like that?" asked Mrs. Applejack. "We don't know, miss," answered Bumpy. "It's not you, is it, Stumpy?" "No, miss, I wouldn't do that, and my lunch has been eaten too," answered Stumpy. "In that case, we'd best get you all a school lunch. We can't have you kids going hungry now, can we?" said Mrs. Applejack. "No, miss," answered the kids. The following day, the little kids followed the big kids to school again. They played around the back of the school where there was no windows, as there was no windows in that part of the school. When all the kids were out playing in the school playground, the little kids went inside and ate their lunches. Just as they were doing so, someone opened the classroom door, and the little kids hid. When the big kids came out for lunch and looked in their lunch boxes, Stampy said, "My lunch has been eaten again." "Mine too," said Stumpy. "Mine too," said Grumpy. "Mine too," said Bumpy. "Mine too," said Creeper. "Mine too," said Kicker. When Mrs. Applejack heard the kids, she went out to see what was wrong. Kicker said, "Please, miss, someone's eaten our lunches again." "What? Again? That's 2 days in a row now. You'd best come with me and get a school lunch then," said Mrs. Applejack. "Yes, miss," said the kids. The little kids thought this was really funny. Whilst Mrs. Applejack was getting the big kids a school lunch, the little kids ate her lunch too. Thankfully, she had some money with some money with her, and she went and bought her own lunch. As you can imagine, she wasn't very happy. The little kids thought it was really funny. Every day they went to the school and ate the big kids' lunches. Then they started going round the rest of the school eating all the other kids' lunches. Of course, no one knew who was doing this, and everyone was completely baffled. One day the school dinner ladies put the food on to cook, and when they left the kitchen, the little kids sneaked in and turned everything off. Needless to say, there was no food ready in time for lunch, so all the kids had to wait until everything was ready so they could eat. This meant that, through no fault of their own, the kids were let back to class. The little kids thought it was funny, so they did the same thing again. This time, when the kitchen staff turned everything back on, the little kids sneaked in and turned everything off again. That day, the kids had to make do with sandwiches that the kitchen staff had to make for them. The next day, the little kids did the same thing again, only this time they ate all the desserts. Thankfully, the kitchen staff had enough to go around for everyone who wanted any. Later that day, Creeper thought she saw her little brother outside. She thought it was just her imagination, so she never said anything to anyone. Every day the little kids continued to take everyone's packed lunches, even the staff's, and ate it. No one knew it was them because they weren't at school yet. They just thought that it was one big joke. However, a few days after Creeper thought she'd seen her little brother on the school premises, she saw him again. This time there was no mistaking it because she knew for definite that it was him. As soon as he saw her, he ran off and hid with the other little kids. After that day, the little kids were more careful because they didn't want to get caught. They continued to go around the school eating everyone's lunches. Then they decided to up their game. As soon as the dinner ladies turned their backs, the kids added really hot spices to the food. When everyone tasted it, they almost choked and they were all begging for water. The little kids saw everything and they were laughing hysterically. The next day, the little kids upped their game. Excuse me. This time they put mud and stones in all the food, and then they ate all the desserts. When everyone cried out in pain after biting a stone, the little kids laughed again. Over the next few days, the little kids did the same thing. Then one day they upped their game again. Not only did they put stones in the food, they decided to throw everything all over the kitchen floor. This meant that there was no dinner for the big kids, which of course they thought was funny. Then one day the Little Monsters gang spotted their little brothers and sisters, but as soon as they went to approach them, they ran off giggling. The next day the Little Monsters were suspicious that it was the little kids that was eating everyone's packed lunches and ruining the school dinners. With permission from Mrs. Applejack, they followed them secretly, and their suspicions were confirmed. They rang their parents from the school office and they came to pick them up. When they got them home, they smacked them hard on their bums and told them to go to their rooms and to stay there. They did as they were told, and the next day they were taken to the school and made to apologise to the staff. End of chapter 16. Thanks for watching. Hope you like it, everybody. Take care and stay safe and well. Bye.